There's no doubt that when a new legendary pops up in a new phase of content in World of Warcraft, anyone who can use that legendary and make good use of it will want to get their hands on it, and Val'anyr is no exception. I, for one, have played Wrath of the Lich King for a very long time, going all the way back to 2008 in the original release, all the way through to most of those servers that we shouldn't really talk about, but it's fairly common knowledge that a lot of us play on them. So it goes without saying, when I knew I was going to be getting Val'anyr, I thought I already knew exactly how it was going to work, because I've seen it many times before. Now, this could very well be a bug, but as fantastic as it looks, getting these electrified bubbles on your entire raid, it's not quite working as it should. And it might not seem like a big deal, but it can just be a little bit frustrating. So obviously, I've only had it myself for a few days, and playing about with it, well, going and healing a 10-man, it was very clear to see that it's proccing when it shouldn't. And this can actually cause some problems, because rather than reading through this entire post on how it was meant to work back in the day, and also looking at the changes through the patches to see that it actually never got any additions to it or amendments to the proc, outside of the fact that it started to work properly with prayer amending for priests, the basics of what this post breaks down is that it's got a 10% chance to proc, which is fine. It's got a 45-second internal cooldown that starts when it actually procs. It doesn't specify that, but it actually does. So if I was to actually spam away and get a proc, you'll see that the blessing is on me for another 6 seconds, so I can keep stacking that shield. The shield itself has actually got a longer duration, because when I go from the last heal, you can technically snipe it at the last second and it will last another 7 seconds. So you're actually only waiting around 23 seconds if you was to get it at that last second before it can technically proc again. So the 45-second internal cooldown starts the second that you get the blessing the first time. And then basically while the proc is up, every heal that you do on anybody in the raid, 15% of that is going to go to them as an absorb shield. Now, as you start to get multiple of these in the guild, this is another important note, which was actually by Ghostcrawler back in 2009, that they will both contribute to the same bubble. So if you've got two Holy Paladins spamming the heals into, let's say, the tank, rather than it being two separate absorb shields, you'll both be stacking that one single huge shield, which is obviously very cool. And if you want a guide on how to actually obtain Val'anyr or even Shadowmourne for when the ICC raid comes out, the sponsor of today's video and a regular sponsor of the channel, Warcraft Tavern, has got you covered. Heading into the Wrath of the Lich King section and then go into raids and then legendaries, you'll be able to see a full walkthrough on how to get Val'anyr. Of course, it's not as easy as just following a guide. You will need a raid that's going to help you get it as well, but it's got a full step-by-step breakdown on everything that you need to do. The same applies for Shadowmourne if you want to start getting yourself ready in advance and know exactly what you need to do when ICC launches. But that's not it. They've got tons of profession guides, dungeon guides, class guides, DPS rankings, various useful tools, and of course they support everything from WoW Classic through to TBC, Wrath of the Lich King, and Retail. They've also got a news section, which is just a great way to stay up to date with everything going on in World of Warcraft. I'll put a link in the description. Feel free to go check them out. What's not very cool is, again, looking at this blue post, it says, note that the spell has to actually heal. So HOTS ticking on a fully healed target cannot cause the proc. However, the shield is based on the size of the heal itself, not the amount healed. So 100% overheal on a Holy Light, you'll still get the full 15% from the proc from Val'anyr. The thing is, it's proccing from non-effective healing. And not only that, I'd say the majority of people that are getting Val'anyr first, and I'm not saying everybody, but I would definitely say a large portion of the people that are getting Val'anyr first are Holy Paladins. And before a pull, normally you're going to get your beacon on the tank, you're going to get Sacred Shield on the tank, and then you'll quickly drink just to regen that mana before the pull. You know, you're doing all of that in like 2 seconds before the pull, let's say, and you're probably even doing a Holy Light before you drink to get your buff as well from your talents. Now, for some strange reason, even though Sacred Shield is not a heal, Sacred Shield is an absorb, and Val'anyr shouldn't even proc from Power Word Shield absorbs, it's proccing from Sacred Shield, which means you can put the weapon on cooldown before you even start an encounter. And I can demonstrate that quite clearly just by Sacred Shielding myself a few times, and then you'll see the weapon proc. There we go, it's gone on the 3rd cast of Sacred Shield, which now means the fight is about to start, you're going to waste quite a big portion of it, it just doesn't feel good. And now you're thinking, well, all you need to do is just, take the weapon off, put it back on, it will go on internal cooldown, and then put your Sacred Shield out. But now you're waiting 45 seconds for the internal cooldown to come back up. you know, let's say you've done that 10 seconds before the pull, you're still waiting 35 seconds before you can start getting these juicy shields up. So I don't know if any of you have got Val'anyr already, and maybe you're not a paladin, maybe you're a different class. Have you seen it proccing off of anything strange? Because even though it's not a big deal, it is still quite irritating. And again, a section from the post from Ghostcrawler back in 2009 is if you have the blessing, i.e. you caused healing and the proc occurred, then overhealing will count towards the bubble. Hots that tick on a target will still contribute to the bubble as well. You can also choose to switch to a direct heal if you don't have enough GCDs available to get all of your hots up before the blessing fades. And it's using hots in this post here as an example, but it should apply to Holy Light and everything that, you know, physically just overheals rather than doing effective healing. That they didn't want you fishing for bubbles before a pull by just constantly healing a tank, for example. Which I can't really think of many situations where you would actually want to do that anyway, because if you think about any fights, even if you was to use Algalon as an example, you wouldn't want to get the bubbles up. You know, they only last 7 seconds. The proc lasts 15 seconds. You wouldn't want to get bubbles up on everyone before a star explodes at the start of the fight, because you're going to be waiting, let's say, 23, 24 seconds, maybe just under that, for that first star if everyone was to focus it and blow it up. So you're not going to want to use it pre-pull. Same with XT for tantrums. You're not going to be able to get bubbles up at the start. So I can't really think of that many ways that you could cheese that by getting the proc at the start of a fight. Not many fights in phase 2 at least anyway. And then the other thing is what I've been trying myself is actually taking the weapon off, putting another weapon on, you know, and then letting it go on ICD and then thinking, right, well, when do I want it? And then putting it back on. But again, because you're putting it on a 45-second internal cooldown, you're going to benefit a lot less from the bubbles over time, because technically when you get a proc, it's actually going to only be a 30-second cooldown, because you're going to benefit from 15 seconds of it. Now it's gone on internal cooldown. You've only got 30 seconds without it. And not even that if you've got shields up right on, you know, the last couple of seconds of the actual blessing itself. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. And I know, like, the video itself, hopefully it gives you a bit of an understanding how Val'anyr works anyway. You know, that wasn't the point. The point was more that it's great. I'm really happy I've got it, obviously. But it's not quite working as it should. And I'd like to see it get fixed. And as I say, I don't know anybody else with it. You know, I've not really spoke to anyone else who's got it. So I don't know if it's proccing from weird things like the first application of Earth Shield for Resto Shamans, for example, or maybe even a Disc Priest pre-bubbling everyone before a pull. You know, I'd like to know more what it is proccing from. So once you get it, start letting me know. But yeah, I'm actually going to post this on the Blizzard Discord anyway, and hopefully it gets fixed, because it is really, really frustrating forgetting that, oh no, I need to Sacred Shield as soon as we get in combat rather than being able to put it on before the pull, because you don't want to waste those precious seconds of the buff. So if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. See you on the next one.